Welcome back. I'm Will Wright.
And I'm Teresa Morris.
And Good Distinctions
are the spice of life.
We are very excited today to have our first ever guest on the show to Good Distinctions, Steph Salinas. So, Teresa, you know Steph better than I do, so go ahead and introduce us.
Yes, welcome, Steph. I had the huge privilege of teaching with Steph at St. John Paul II High School in Phoenix for a year. I think we actually taught together, and then we were just involved in a lot of things and in each other's orbit for a few other years. So Stephanie and her husband and her 4 kids live in Phoenix. So Stephanie, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and the work that you are currently doing now as Director of Events and Spanish Ministry at Blessed Is She?
Sure. First of all, thank you for having me. I'm very happy and honored to be your first guest. But I am Steph Salinas. I'm married with 4 kids. We are in year 7 of our marriage, so it's been a ride. I've been part of this diocese for many years. And currently I work at Blessed Is She as Director of Events and Spanish Ministry. Prior to that, I was teaching at St. John Paul II, which I love and hope to always stay some kind of connected to JP2 and that community. And before that, I was working for the diocese as the Director of Religious Education at St. John Vianney in Goodyear. So I've had experience in ministry, pastoral ministry, diocesan ministry, and ultimately just trying to find ways to plug myself in and just be an active member and find just little areas in this diocese where I feel like the Lord is calling me to grow in. So I'm very excited to be working for Blessed Is She. Our main office is here in Arizona, and I get to offer and plan and do the logistics and the behind the scenes of planning events for our ministry. And also now including Spanish ministry, which is just brand new, and they've asked me to kind of bring that to the forefront as another extension of Blessed Is She.
Did you always think that you would work for the church? Was that your plan to go into ministry in some context?
No. The Lord is just hilarious, and he just hijacked my plans for my life. I always thought I would probably be like a high school counselor or something. And then at one point in my life, I was like, oh, public speaking would be great. And then I became a youth minister, and he's like, you're going to do a little bit of both. And it just kind of started and evolved from there. But no, I never saw myself working for the church at all.
Well, and it seems like the Lord just keeps pulling you further and further, along with your husband and your brother-in-law, because you also have another ministry here in the Valley with the Well. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, the Well is a ministry that was started as a response to the pandemic and just really desiring to have this communal life with our friends that we were regularly praying with. And once everything was closed down and there were limitations with public gatherings, we really felt this desire, my husband and I, to get together with a group of our friends to have this small, intimate night of prayer. And what has happened is, and Teresa was actually at our very first night, it was this intimate night of just having time with the Lord, obviously trying to comply with like the space restrictions and whatnot, and the capacity at the time, the restrictions for that. But what has happened is it's just kind of been taken over. Again, the Lord, he just hijacks all of my plans. And so it was this idea of we're going to get together with our friends and pray. And now it's just like this. We're going on our 3rd year of having this night for young adults once a month to come together in adoration with the Blessed Sacrament. Priests from different parishes in the Valley come and hear confessions all night. We have over 100 young adults that just show up, and many of them that I don't know. And it's just so wild and beautiful that the Lord kind of used that desire that we had to pray with our friends and really highlighted a need for our diocese where young adults can come together and have a similar experience with prayer. Obviously, the Lord does very unique things with each and every one of us, but coming together, forming this community has just been so good for me personally, selfishly, that I just didn't realize this was going to be this thing, this ministry, that it was going to keep going after the pandemic. But the Lord's just been so gracious. And it's a way that my husband and I are able to serve together, which we used to do when we first met each other, serving like in youth ministry capacities. And now being able to offer this together has been really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. What is it like? Because both you and your husband work for the church in different capacities. So what is it like for the two of you to discern doing something for the church together? And then what does it look like to support each other in your respective ministries? Like, how does that play into your relationship? How does it affect your marriage? What does that look like?
A lot of babysitters, a lot of coordinating, who's dropping off, who's picking up, what that's looking like. But ultimately, just knowing that my husband has a unique calling and he is his person. He is a son of God, aside from being my husband. And the Lord has blessed him with an opportunity to be a youth minister and to also be a musician for different parish events, diocesan events. And he has that he gets to do, and I get to sit back and support him. And seeing him thrive in those areas and grow in those areas is really, it's really beautiful to see. And then he also supports me, and which is what I felt called to do. When I wanted to go back to school, he took a step back from ministry, worked the job he didn't like, just so that I can focus on furthering my my education. And it's difficult. Working for the church is a lot of sacrifice. But my kids now, they don't know anything else. And it's pretty crazy that if you ask like my 6-year-old, what do your mom and dad do for a living? She'll say they get to talk about Jesus. And like, that's really a gift that we don't ever want to take for granted. But now being able to do it together, and just kind of feed off of it's funny. We're not parents at the well. I mean, we're always parents, but like we're not parenting at the well. So we just kind of get to have this night, almost like a date night, but we're just like working at it, we have this dynamic, which is different from our day to day, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I love that. And is there something that any advice that you would give to couples who are married who do feel drawn to work in the church? I know that when I first met you and Chilo, it was a huge witness to me in my life to just see a married couple who were totally oriented, their lives were oriented to serving the church. And I think oftentimes young people who feel very drawn to that can experience some fear, or even other people trying to convince them away from it because, whether it could, the schedules are weird because if you work in ministry, you have to work on weekends, and, how do you balance family life? Or because working for the church doesn't necessarily pay as well all the time. So what advice would you give to young couples who feel really called and drawn to give their lives to the church in a really explicit manner?
Yeah, I would say first, obviously, pray about it and see if that's something that the Lord is really calling you to do at that moment. And maybe not right now, but the Lord can bring you back to it. But I will also say don't be discouraged, because there's a desire in your heart that the Lord's going to fulfill, and He's going to do it His way, and it's going to look different. But I would honestly probably say to have these honest conversations with your partner, your spouse, and say, is this something that we can do? Or is it something that, we're going to work towards? Maybe one of us can work in ministry right now, and then we'll work on getting the other one there. But it is a real conversation where it comes with people told us, it's not going to pay much, or you guys are never going to see each other. And we're actually entering into this new season where for the first time ever, Chilo works on Sundays, and that's just, we've never had to experience that. But we're finding new ways to kind of enter into this and see the beauty of, well, this is why he's doing it. And yeah, it's going to take some sacrifice and from both parties, like there's times where I have to sacrifice what I want and what I feel and the vision I have for our marriage and our family. And there's times where he's going to have to do it. But I would honestly say don't be discouraged. And if it's not in your means right now to do it, then find a way where you can both serve, maybe as a volunteer, and you can kind of start that way. But the Lord is just so good and generous that he's going to take care of you. We know we've had that temptation of like just leaving ministry because we feel like we'll have more stability somewhere else. But the Lord has proven time and time again that he's going to take care of us. So,
yeah. And I like that he brought up that maybe it's not in this season and that people need to discern that, things change as time goes by. I know for myself, when my wife and I met, I was, when we first met, I was working at Olive Garden, but very quickly I was working for the church. And then when we had our first child, I was working Saturday to Wednesday and she was working Monday to Friday. And I felt like we never saw each other. And so it got to a point where I was like, okay, I really need to find something Monday to Friday. Well, I was doing music at a church. Like how does that work? You got to be there Saturday and Sunday. And I felt like I had to do it. Like I had been given these gifts. So clearly I have to do music in the church. Otherwise I'm letting God down or something like that. But through discernment and talking to my bride, it was very clear. Okay, no, God's calling me to something else for a season. And now I'm actually overseeing the Scola at JP2. So I'm back into music in the church, but it's a different angle. And so it's just interesting to see how God works. So just want to affirm that and re-echo that. Yeah, make sure that it's not all or nothing. I mean, we are, all about finding good distinctions. We think they're the spice of life around here. And so, finding that middle ground of in between the two extremes. Okay, maybe it's not right now in this season, but maybe later God will call you back into it. And having that humility and gratitude and docility towards the Holy Spirit to let him guide you. I think that's very beautiful. So I commend you for that, and Chilo.
The Well has their first ever retreat coming up in a couple months. And I would love to hear about that. And I would also just love to hear your thoughts on what success looks like in ministry, or how we even think about that. Because like you were saying, I was at the first Well night, and I remember my friend texting me about it. And I think you and Chilo had both invited me. And then I walked in and I was like, this place is packed. There's a lot going on. And that was the first ever night. And so it really was touching on a desire that people were having and a need that people were experiencing at that time, and then has continued to grow and just has really expanded. And one of the things I think is really beautiful about it is that you really are just providing a space for people to receive the sacraments. You're not reinventing the wheel. It's just like you're providing a space to receive what the church already has to offer. So yeah, how would you define success in ministry, or what does success look like? Because it seems like it's something other than what it would look like in a business setting. But it's interesting because to me, it feels like the Well was immediately successful. So how would you say you guys think about that, or how you view that?
Well, first off, thank you. I appreciate that, and I receive that. And I think that that's what starts the idea of this is successful, this is going well, we need to keep going, is hearing people affirming the work that we're doing, affirming our prayer and what we're getting in prayer, as far as the Lord saying, no, you need to keep it going, affirming our prayer and saying that we need to keep it going. Chilo and I have been very open from the beginning, and we've said, when the Lord tells us to stop, we'll stop. When the Lord tells us that it's kind of ran its course, then we're fine. It's served its purpose. And so I would say we've been very blessed with new people showing up every month, and people that just are barely finding out about this and about this night, this prayer night. And just thinking that, again, we're not doing anything different. If you go to an XLT, it's a similar format. If you go to a parish mission, it's a similar format. But what we are offering is the sacraments, I guess, in an unstructured or unconventional hour at a parish that fits the schedule of a young adult. And so we felt really strongly called to have a retreat for months now. And we've just kind of gave the Lord every excuse. Like, no, Lord, we're busy. People aren't going to show up. We don't have money for this. The well is funded by our bank account. So we're just like, what are you talking about, Lord? And so I think enough was enough with the Holy Spirit. And it was just like this very strong prompting of like, this needs to happen. And so we are excited to be able to offer this. We're excited to hear our friends be excited about it. And, it's interesting because a good amount of the people that attend the well have experience in youth ministry, whether they were on a core team or attended in high school. And their idea of a retreat is probably a lot different than what this retreat is going to be. But we want to make sure that there are still experiences for them. That just because you graduated from Life Teen or you received all your sacraments already, that there's still a place for you to have an experience with the Lord in a different way than you would normally do at a parish. And so what we always want to tell people that come to the well is this should just be a side dish of your relationship with the Lord. Please do not let this night sustain your prayer life. It has to be deeper. It has to be more. And we always hope and encourage them to get plugged back into their parishes, to their young adult community, because we travel to different parishes across the diocese. And so we don't know when we're going to be back at your parish, but we do know that there's a good amount of you, a good group of you that all go to the same parish. So why don't you meet up and have a Bible study, have this time where you go to the chapel together? And so we want to offer that retreat as a way to bring everyone together, have this time of reflection, encounter with the Lord in a beautiful way where we're just kind of unplugged from everything else, and then send them back out to your parish. That's the goal, is be plugged in. The well should not be it for you.
So one of the things that I think is really fascinating about like different ministries to different demographics in the church is it seems like there is a huge gap between high school ministry and then when people get married, it's sort of like, oh, you go through marriage prep, so then you kind of feel like you're being ministered to again. And then there really is like, there's a lot of stuff for young adults, but it doesn't necessarily feel like maybe there's things that young adults really necessarily want to receive. And there's also a lot of talk in the church about just young people leaving the church and because they don't feel like they have a place. So your experience in ministry in various contexts, both ministering as a teacher, ministering in the parish, at the diocesan level, now at the well, and also at Blessed is She. What is your sense of the health of youth and young adults in the church? And what do you think the well is responding to in their hearts? Like, what need is it responding to? Like, why has it touched such a nerve? And then also, what do you think the church as a whole could do to better serve and equip young adults?
I think we're kind of turning the tide from when I was probably a youth minister coming out of high school, early young adults. And it was this like strong emphasis on like the nuns and that age group of like the 21 to 30-year-old young adults, that kind of young adult Catholics that fall off the face of the earth and they're back when it's time to get married. And I think what we're seeing now is young people holding on to their faith because they are being formed by this generation of people who were truly formed and know how to form others. And so it's this echoing of the faith. It's this catechesis that they have been given, where if you think about our generation and who formed us, they weren't the best informed about the truth and the beauty and the goodness of our faith. And they weren't able to give that to us. They weren't able to articulate it well to us. And so now there's an importance. There's like this draw to hold on to that truth. And so what I feel is that young people and young adults have truth. And, you know, I think something that your podcast does beautifully is you share it. You tell people there's truth and this is it. And so now there's not this excuse of, well, nobody told me or I don't know. And so for a young person now and a young adult, they have truth. They know what truth is. They know what morality is. They know how to form their conscience. Now, whether they choose to do it or not is up to them. But I've seen that I think we're kind of getting to this place where there is a revival happening in our church, especially with young people who are stepping into their vocations, who are stepping into discernment properly, who are building this community of young people that love the Lord, that believe in the true presence of the Eucharist. And that's what we offer at the well. You're gonna sit in front of the Lord. You're gonna sit in front of his true presence. Whatever I say to welcome you or to not welcome you, however great or not great you thought the talk was, however long the confession line is, none of that matters. You're going to sit before the King of Kings. He's going to do the work, and our job is to just bring you to him.
Well, and I just want to interject. I mean, I went to the well for the first time last time it was held, and I was thrilled to give the message. It was a lot of fun. But during adoration, I used to do praise and worship music a lot. So like I know how it goes and I know the different I guess strategies and things of ways of praying and helping people pray and enter into it better. And Chilo is just really, really good at what he does. And I've told him that before, and I'm really not blowing smoke. And anyone who knows me knows that I don't say that lightly, and I'm probably one of the most critical people on that there is, just to be honest. So like he does a really good job, because normally when I go to some kind of life teen style thing or praise and worship, it's distracting. It's like, please just shut up and let me pray. I would love silence. Like an hour and a half of silence is just, maybe it's because I have a 6-year-old and a 2-year-old. I don't know. But I really just like silence. And at first I was like, oh, man, there's music. And I was like, oh man, oh goodness, I'm praying now. And then I just entered into it, and it was just beautiful. And I was really moved. And it wasn't some sort of emotional response. It was just this narrowing of vision where I was just dialed right into the Eucharist, which is exactly what you hope for as someone who's leading the music to augment and elevate what's already right in front of you. And everything is about Jesus. It's just so clear that Chilo and Jeremiah and everybody else, they're just praying. They're just very clearly entering in. And so it's very beautiful. And I think, I know you said there was about 100 young adults, but when I was counting, I feel like there was maybe like closer to 200. Yeah. It was remarkable. And it's also remarkable to me as someone who's been at the parish side of things, as well as at the school and involved in diocesan things and the Institute of Catholic Theology. Like I get around the diocese, and it's really hard to get people to things. And you seem to manage to do this by word of mouth and Instagram, which is remarkable. And it just shows that God is clearly leading the way on this. And it's clearly filling a need, which is him. It's the need for him. But as you say, and I think you named it perfectly, it's the well. It's not somewhere that you stay. You come and you fill up and you go back wherever you're from to do the work. So yeah, I just It's just remarkable. I mean, it really is a great thing that you're doing. And what came to me in prayer while I was there, and then Teresa brought this up as we were talking about having you on, was this idea of cooperation in ministry. And I just got this strong sense that, man, I want to keep being part of this in some way.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that we talked about maybe me being a small part of the retreat, God willing. It's like, yeah, bring it. Like, let's go. Even if I'm just going to pray and then help people feel welcomed. I mean, I intend to be there as much as I can, because it's just, there's something beautiful there. But anyway, I'd like to talk about that idea of cooperation in ministry, because I see a lot of people in the Catholic world just competing for resources, competing for time, competing online, in person. My parish is better than your parish. You know, we offer a more reverent mass than your parish does. And you name it, there's so many different ways that we can compete with one another. And it's so unhealthy. Not to mention this Mark Twain quote, I bring it up every time I can. It's comparison is the thief of joy. And I love that. Because we shouldn't be competing with one another when it comes to helping people encounter Jesus. I feel like that's something where we should absolutely be collaborating and cooperating. So anyway, I will stop my long-winded diatribe and turn it over to you, ladies. What do you think?
I did want to share on that a little bit. I think it's so important that you guys are talking about this and that you want to talk about it. We think about the Samaritan woman, the woman at the well. And our retreat is named "Come and See," and it's based off of this idea is that she had an encounter with the Lord, and she didn't keep it to herself. She left her picture. She ran back and told everybody, "Come and see about this guy that just told me everything I've done." And we should have that approach with the Lord, right? When we have had a true encounter with Him, we want to tell everybody. We want this to spread like wildfire. People are so quick to post what they ate for lunch on their stories. You're in haste to share about your day on social media. Where is that desire to share about the Lord? And so when we're talking about this cooperation, is that we should all have this hunger for just as many people knowing about Him as possible. And so I don't know, I've been in different ministries, I've been in different circles. There is a temptation to label ourselves. I'm this kind of Catholic. I'm this kind of practicing Catholic. I prefer this over that. And it's like, hey, we get to celebrate and receive the same body of Christ. Like that, your Jesus that you receive on Sundays, not different than my Jesus that I'm receiving. Your tabernacle in your not so pretty church has the same Jesus that this beautiful, extravagant cathedral has. So when we start to focus on that, I think it makes it a lot easier when people have reservations or bring up reservations about, you do things differently, I do things differently. Sure, we're all trying to get to heaven.
Amen.
Some of my favorite people to meet are the folks that love going to Latin Mass, and then they're like, "Hey, I'm going to this XLT later." It's like, huh? Like it doesn't seem to match, but these charismatic trads are just some of my favorite people to meet, because it's like, yes, you can have your cake and eat it too. It's that Catholic both and, right? I mean, I'm sure I've talked about this on the show before, and if I haven't, here we go. I love a good Reverent Novus Ordo. I love the Latin Mass. I love the Liturgy of St. John Chrysostom. If it's valid, and like you say, if Jesus is showing up, it's beautiful. And there's this diversity. I'm teaching Western Civilization Part 2 at school, and it's basically Renaissance to present day. And I'm going through with the students the Protestant Reformation and the Catholic Counter-Reformation. And I really highlight this notion that, we have all these different orders, all these different rites, all these different ways of celebrating the Catholic faith. And they're quite different at times. I mean, the doctrine's all the same, of course, but the way in which it's expressed, the charisms that are animating certain orders and rites, very different there's a real diversity, but in that diversity, there's a beauty and a goodness and a truth that is transcendent, that is Jesus. And we don't need to have the splintering that we've unfortunately seen with the Protestant ecclesial communities, where, well, I don't like Pastor so-and-so's message, so I'm going to start my own church. And now there's 20,000 different denominations. Especially when I talk to the students and they say, well, Catholicism's just one denomination. It's like, no, it's pre-denominational. We don't have denominations. We're the Church of Jesus Christ. Of course, the Orthodox, that's another story entirely. Talk about good distinctions. They've got a real claim to apostolicity, but the whole Pope thing is a big deal. So we pray for unity. But anyway, my point is, like, there's a diversity at the service of Jesus, and there's no separation. There's no disunity, even though there's a diversity. So yeah, I mean, you can have this Catholic both and. We don't need to succumb to some sort of either or that separates and divides.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's also so true of just at the very beginning of the church, right? That the people the Lord called to be his disciples and apostles were all so different. And that's why I love that we have the Feast of St. Peter and Paul on the same day, because they probably didn't like each other very much. Like, they have such different temperaments and different ways to follow the Lord and different paths to him. And yet we celebrate them on the same day because they both gave their lives in service to him out of love for him. So just like you said, Steph, it's like, yeah, we're serving the same Lord. It's the same Jesus that we're all receiving. It doesn't matter the aesthetics or like the circumstance you receive him under. It's still him, which is the primary point.
Just a quick note on that. Yeah, I mean, like, one of my favorite parts of the New Testament is when Paul's talking about, I withstood him to his face, talking about Peter. It's like, yeah, that's so sassy. That it's almost antagonistic. Almost. It's a really fun relationship.
Yeah.
Really sure. Under the cover bromance. Like, come on. They loved each other, but it's funny to watch those dynamics. Yeah.
Yeah, they get to share a day forever now. I'm wondering, Steph, kind of the opposite, like we can talk about competing in ministries, right? Or like kind of gatekeeping, strategies, or gatekeeping Christ or certain charisms or what have you. And I'm wondering about the opposite of that, where someone feels really on fire and they want to share, like you were talking about, but then they look around and they go, oh, well, all these other ministries exist, or there's other ministries that care for women, or there's other ministries that care for a certain demographic that I feel really drawn to. And what would you say about kind of the flip side of that coin of not wanting to gatekeep, not wanting to grasp, but looking around and saying, is there really a place for me and the heart that I have to serve the church? And is there really even a need for my particular gifts and my particular passions?
Yeah, I think the Lord makes it clear. We are blessed with so much going on here in the Diocese of Phoenix. Like, there are events galore, ministries, you name it, you can pick from. And so we thought that too, like, oh, there's already things happening that people can go to, but that's not necessarily, other ministry success should not be the reason why we do or do not do something. The Lord has placed this on our hearts. And so we're going to try our best to answer this call from him. And he's going to make it very clear what he wants out of it. And so I would say, if you see, yes, there's another ministry that's successful doing the thing that you feel called to do, that's great. But are they doing it at your parish? Are you, you have your own gifts and talents that the Lord has given you and that he's entrusted for you to use. How are you going to use them? Are you going to get plugged in with them? Or do you feel called to do your own thing and invite people, draw them into that? Imagine if, just even, I don't know, if these ministries all felt that way, if these different organizations felt that way, we would just not have the abundance. And we have such a diverse group of leaders in ministry that maybe the well isn't for you. Maybe you don't like praise and worship and you really want to just have chant in the background and just do a holy hour and maybe pray, evening prayer, and that's going to be your thing. It's the same idea. You're still gathering with the young adult group, but you want to do it a little bit differently. Go for it, So I would just say the Lord gives you your own gifts and talents, and the way that we respond to his call should not be based off of what other people are doing.
When we discern in action too, I mean, you can't just sort of sit in a bubble and say, okay, I think I should do this, and then I'm going to keep praying about it. You got to, at some point, the rubber meets the road, and you got to do it. And then you also don't discern in isolation. You have to ask other people for their feedback and sort of discern, as I say, like looking in the rear view of saying, okay, was that life-giving to me? Was it life-giving to others? Do they feel fed in some way or spiritually strengthened? And so when you start sort of looking at all your gifts and talents, and then it really becomes clear that it's not just that, it's actually a charism. It's actually something that's at the service of the church. That requires action. Again, to discern requires action. It requires the feedback of others. So yeah, I mean, like you're saying, I think that's a very good approach of, okay, maybe this wasn't for you, but there's a billion other ways to, maybe not a billion. There's how many people are in Phoenix? There's it's the fourth most populous city in the country. Like, come on, you can find some people to do something.
Yeah, well, we would love to hear in a second about places people can go to get plugged in with the well, in particular for the retreat. But before that, one of the goals at Good Distinctions is just to reignite good conversation and to try to have and host good conversations between people, whether or not people end up agreeing or not, but just to find, commonalities. So I'm wondering if there's any conversation that you think would be important for the church to be having at this time, or just our culture at large. So any conversation that you think would be significant to begin having in the church or in our culture right now.
I think a huge conversation that should be taking place is how the church can better support married families and families in ministry. There's a great emphasis on marriage prep. And then after that, it's good luck. Figure it out. Maybe go on a retro retreat later on in the road or something. But there's not much of an outreach for married couples. Once, where's the follow-up NFP class after you have kids? Where is the check-in on how, just now you're married 5 years, now you have kids, now we enter into these new stages as married couples, and we're trying to figure it out. And, I think the church could offer just a little more support in that way to young families trying to keep it going, so that we're not, comparing ourselves to what other people are doing or how they're living their life, but that the church really encourages us to live out our calling and our vocation in a specific way.
Fantastic food for thought. I definitely agree that married couples need some more support. And one of the things I've been thinking about recently is the parish is a family of domestic churches. And so that definitely is something I'm going to contemplate more, and I'm going to try to write something up. But thank you for sharing that. And so before we sort of wrap things up, where can people find you? What sort of things would you like to highlight? And where can they go and look?
Yeah, you can follow the well _the well ministry on Instagram. You can be on the lookout for our lackluster posts that tell people to come once a month to our locations. We don't do the very best job at our social media content and management, but it seems to work, and the Lord's very okay with that. So follow us at the well. There's information there for our retreat. The link is in the bio. But other than that, we'd love to pray with you monthly, meet you monthly, bring a friend. We wanted to make sure that it's not just for the already evangelized Catholic. We want to be approachable and have people who are trying to get back into their faith or have no idea who this Jesus guy is or fell off for a while. We want to make it for everybody. So if that's you, you're welcome at the well. and we'd love to pray with you. So we also have our retreat. It's called Come and See, based off of the encounter with the woman at the well when she encountered Jesus. And we wanted to make sure that we highlighted what the Lord has done in our lives. So if you're a young adult in need of retreat, we will be having our retreat December 8th and 9th at St. Gregory's in Phoenix. We're very excited to have this time to pray together. You can find more information on our Instagram as well.
Fantastic. Well, Steph, thank you so much for coming on the show. For those who are listening, if this is the first time you're tuning in to Good Distinctions, you can follow us at Good Distinctions on Instagram or go to gooddistinctions.com. Subscribe to us on YouTube as well at Good Distinctions. We try to come out with at least one episode per week. We'll be having more guests on as we move forward. And it's wonderful to have you with us. And feel free to rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you're listening. That really helps us be seen by more people. And so with that, Steph, thank you so much for coming on.
Steph, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was such a gift to talk to you.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me.
Well, that's it for today for Good Distinctions. Good Distinctions
Are the spice of life. We'll see you next time.